Okay, so I'm going to give you a synopsis of what I heard, right? And then we can go a few things. So essentially you said something like you are in a long distance relationship and you want to connect at the end of the day, and then you have a disconnect because you want to tell him about your business, let's say, and he wants to connect, right, in a different way. And then you said, and this is the fun part, women should be in their feminine, but you've worked also on your masculine, and it's hard because we have to be masculine and feminine, while men can always be in their masculine. First of all, that's a crock of shit. I don't know who taught you that, but that is absolutely wrong, right? And why I'm saying that is when he wants to connect with you and actually feel you and be with you, that's his feeling part. So men are not always in their masculine. There is no such thing as the masculine and the feminine. There is parts of us that are more goal-oriented, and that's parts of us that are more, let's say, flow or relaxed or feeling-oriented. Both men and women have both parts. How you orient sexually is one thing, but who you are as a human is both. So what you are essentially saying is he wants to actually do the relational thing, let's say the flow thing, which is important to him at the end of his day, because let me tell you one thing, no man ever wants to only be in his masculine, big quotation marks, because it's incredibly tiring, as you well know, because you just ended an email and you are fucked up about it. So what happened, and this is what's really important that you understand this, what happened is your emotionality about your work and his emotionality about your relationship crashed or clashed, right? Because what you wanted was somebody to listen to you and whatever, acknowledge you or even just listen to you. And what he wanted was to actually connect with you. Right? And so why that won't work is that what you are doing is you're using him essentially how you should use a therapist or a good friend or a business mentor. Right? It's like he wants a relationship and you want to talk about your business. It's not the best use of your relationship. Right? It's not to say that there isn't a place for that, but in a long-term in a long-distance relationship, you have to have discipline around it, or you're going to ruin your emotional connection. So it's better to say, let's say he calls, I need like 15 minutes to tell you about this thing. Then we can connect. Or you say, I just got off this email. I need to call my business mentor or my friend and describe the situation, and then we can connect. But there is nothing, I'm going to say this very bluntly, he will never say this to you like this. There's nothing he wants less than listen to you talk about your business at the end of the day when he's had business all day. It's totally unsexy. Totally unsexy, right? It's not that he wouldn't do it. He'll do it because he loves you, but it doesn't do the thing. So what you have to understand is he, as much as you, is constantly torn between emotion and business, right? Getting shit done, masculine and feminine, however you want to call it. Go and flow is what I prefer, because then it's not about men and women. Your go part hit his flow part. His flow part hit your go part, so to speak, right? Doesn't work in long-distance relationship. If you'd be in the same place, it's not that much of a problem because you have time, right? So if you're going to move in together, right? If you come home and you first want to talk about stuff, he can hang with that knowing that you'll connect after. But if you don't have that and you have this hour or half an hour, how long do you typically talk in the evening? Yeah, well, I would suggest that you know the purpose of the call, right? That's probably one of the challenges, is that it's not clear what the purpose of the call is. And that's a real problem in long-distance relationship. I know a thing or two about that. It's that you don't know what the purpose of the call is, right? Because you're not actually synced up at all, right? It's different time zones, for one, right? So he might be having lunch, it's the end of your day, right? Or it's his, early evening, your late evening, or the morning, So you're not synced up. You're not synced up in your activities. So you're not like coming to the relationship like you would if you're living in the same space, where it's clear, we're both home, we're de-escalating, we have the evening together, we know what we're doing. So you have to decide, you have to be somewhat intentional on, in the many calls you might have in a day, or the little calls you have in a day, that you're clear what it's about. And so how you do that is not in the call, but before, right? So you go, do you typically call each other without warning, or do you have a time, or what's the typical thing? You have to have it either or, right? So what I would suggest you do, so that you're fostering connection again with whatever is going on, is that you do a quick text and you go, just finish the email. Do you have a moment? Can we just talk about that? Right? Then he knows he's going to call and run into business. That you're in the same business too. So that's work for him. Right? That's work for him. So he called you wanting to be a lover, but then he was a coworker or a colleague, right? And that's gonna not gel. Both ways, like I said, he was emotional, you were business. So if you go, hey, I wanna tell you about this email, then when he picks up the phone and calls you, he knows what he's getting into. Or he could go, whatever, some nice little romantic thing or a cute thing or sexual thing. And then that's the call about you connecting. And then you're not subjecting the other person to an out of sync moment, right? All of this will go away if you live together, which you're planning on. But even then, you want to make sure that some of your interaction is the kind of interaction that you have with a lover and not the interaction you have with a colleague. Because he's gonna kind of constantly feel like he wants to relax with you and connect with you, but now he's back in business. He puts his business head on. And if he doesn't want to put his business head on, you're gonna be somewhat or the other way around. You feel all lovey-dovey and he's asking you about work. Right, and you go, I didn't want to go back to my work body, right? I want to be in my relationship body. So in long-term relationship, you have to understand that you're not going to be synced up. And the first thing, you don't have to schedule every evening at 6 we will talk, but you should have a little intention of the conversation up front, which is your syncing up. And then when you talk, you are on the same page. It's the curse of modern love, right? Like this shit that has never, you wouldn't, our grandparents would have never done that, right? You met somebody in your own village at the fountain or the local hall or something like that, right? And then that was that. But that's not how we live. And if you can also kind of separate the masculine, feminine from what's actually true for you, you're going to have an easier time. And what's probably true is that you love what you're doing, you're really good at it. You kick ass and take names later, and that's something that you're actually happy and proud about. And that's not wrong, but that's not all you are, right? And so it's much better to go, well, this is actually my strength, and why am I going to try and not be who I really am? Because anytime you fight who you are, you're going to be at odds. So you could just say, yeah, I'm really damn good at this. Fuck all this masculine, feminine bullshit. I am really good at this, right? Right? It's a lens. It's like introvert and extrovert, or I'm anxiously attached, the newest lens, right? Everybody has an attachment style that they carry in a big sign in front of them, right? Like they're lenses. They're not, well, human beings are much more complicated than that. And if you're constantly feeling wrong for your strengths, you're dividing yourself, and then that, of course, also really doesn't work with the partnership. And then also, if you look at the partner through that lens, it becomes just very unwieldy. And so it's best to say, I am that. That's a big part of who I am. If he wants to be with me, we're going to have the conversations about the email ever so often, because I'm really passionate about that. And then you say to him, I have to have that conversation. And he puts his work hat on, right? Or his supportive boyfriend hat that is also straining his work muscle, right? And then in return, you go, okay, whew, now how are you doing, right? There are some real interesting physiological things that is different for men and women, for instance, right? So for instance, typically men have deep, meaningful conversations next to each other, not across, right? And that, I don't know if you have noticed that. And one of the reasons for that is that, like, let's say evolutionarily speaking, well, what would you do? You'd be out there hunting something or whatever, right? You're not like staring at each other, having these conversations. That's predator behavior, so to speak. So typically men, but this is also true for some women who are built that way, you're much better off sitting next to each other and kind of like casually handing the praise over. Now, if you want to do that in the intimate way, you could like lay back to front and speak into the ear. I don't know if you know that people typically process different in the different parts of their brain. So sometimes when you speak in the one ear, they can't process it as well as in the other ear. So there's all kinds of like really interesting stuff. Yes, sometimes, particularly in men, if you're speaking to your guy and he's turning a deaf ear, it's maybe because it's not this ear that he's listening with, right? For real. And you can go around, right, to the other ear. So if you're, let's say, he's leaning against you and you whisper in one ear, there's nothing really happening, and then you whisper in the other ear, and you can feel him relaxed, and you know where that is, right? And so there's ways to play with the physiology. And so typically people who are more fight-oriented, it's easier to do side by side. And people who are more flight-oriented, it's often that, like, them being touched or held or contact that allows them to relax into, not being able to flee in a good way, right? In a consensual way, that helps, right? So, like the safety of that. But if you're a fighter and he's a fighter in the let's say stress response, side to side might be good. Maybe he'll say the praise to you without confronting you body to body, So those are fine details, and everybody's nervous system is different, and you have to figure out what works. For some people, direct front-to-front contact's good, spooning good, or side by side, It'll be like the ballet of praise. I receive praise best when one of my feet is in the air, and so you'll figure it out. Yeah. The boiling over is typically when the energy moves up into the head. If you've ever been angry, you know that the energy moves up the front of the body and out, and that energetics is a very explosive energetic. It's not natural for the body to go up and out the front of the body. It creates all kinds of stuff. So if you can somehow manage to get it back down into her body by moving her body, taking her feet and moving them around if she's sitting down or whatever, right? Like and being like just like totally silly about it, she probably can't hold on to it. That's one way to go. So here's the why. This is for everyone, but this is, if you understand this, you'll be gold. because she wants a release of that pent-up energy. And so if you don't like give her that release, she'll like pick at it till something happens that gives her the release. Right? You're absolutely right. She works, she's at the hospital, she drives home, she's in her head, she's tired, she's and then she wants the poof, right, the release. And she'll pick at you till she gets that release.